So yeah, I was talking about the whole preparation in terms of paperwork for the Olympics. It took a long while getting to Japan. I mean, there was so much uncertainty on the games itself, and then there was so much uphill in terms of the protocols because COVID only complicated things. And I mean, I was in a way, since I was managing it all by myself, I was kind of full of anxiety about, is it going to happen at all? Will my paperwork be in place by the time I reach? And believe you me, actually 50% of it was not ready when I left on the flight finally. There was some paperwork that happened absolutely the last 10 minutes of my being at the airport. So it was like that touch and go, and I was not even sure whether I'm going to reach Japan and enter it in terms of immigration clearances. But it all worked out. I did reach Japan, and it was, of course, wonderful being there. But then I thought that the worst is over, and actually it was not. Why? Because there was so much of paperwork still left in terms of, there was a whole protocol around being there. The whole I'll put on a slide. Don't have to see my face so much. Then I'll just plant this. Can you see my screen? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up, SP, if it's all good. Yeah. So this was the view from my hotel room. And the deal was that I had to kind of stay quarantined for a while. That's what I thought. And I'm not supposed to move out of my hotel room. And what I didn't do is go to the main press center and get my other paperwork sorted, which I was like blissfully unaware of. So what happened in the end is that when I was kind of woke up to it and I reached the MPC and I started realizing that there is still more of things that need to be done in terms of applying for the venue access, getting a pass for the opening ceremony, blah, blah, blah. There was still so much left. And the daily COVID tests that were in any case happening. So, there were still many layers that I yet had to unfold in the entire protocol required to be here. So anyways, eventually it all fell into place. And if you tell me now that I have to go and cover the Olympics, it's the back of my hand, of course I'll manage smoothly. But the point is that when you are, especially if you're going alone and you're in a country where sometimes language can be a problem, then just to get that information, which is there, but it's hidden amongst many layers of other information. So you really need to find that needle in the haystack. But it's there. And the point is that nobody has deprived you of that information. It's just a question of you finding it the right time. And it did eventually all sort out. And yeah, we had the opening ceremony start. As you can see in the background, assuming the slide is clear, the background, all the seats are empty. So one had to take pictures of the journalists who are there. This lady was from China. And you can see in the background, there is the other setup for the television, etc., and also for the reporters who are sitting, and it was called the tribunes. So towards our side, like towards the foreground is the photographers area, and towards the back is, amongst the many other venues, the tribunes for the writers. So this is the kind of view we had of the opening ceremony. And the opening ceremony is incomplete without fireworks. So yeah, this was what we saw. And I mean, it was pretty nice, especially this whole drone thing that was created in a 3D way. In a still image, it comes as a round, as a circle, but in the moving image, it was a sphere that was rotating like the Earth. So it was quite spectacular that way. But what is amazing also now is, if you look at these pictures closely, though I've kept my camera on a railing in front of me, where I've I'm using a clamp to put the camera securely and hence getting a steady shot. This is shot on a Sony A1 with a 12-24 lens, so I'm getting that wideness. But it's also the kind of detail that current technology in terms of camera sensors allow us to really capture. Like, the details from the very shadow areas to the very highlight areas are all there vividly and with all the colors that we need to see. This is pretty much close to what one was seeing live in front of us. So it's really kudos to, having such friendly technology now, that so much of our task is actually taken away by, or rather addressed by, good technology. This was my opening salvo, if I can describe it. This is day one of the events beginning. There was shooting happening in the early morning hours. I had slept after the closing ceremony. I had reached my hotel room around 3 a.m. So I just couldn't get up at 9 a.m. and head for that. And I chose to shoot the wrestling, the weightlifting. And Mirabai Chanu was expected to win a medal. And she did it so amazingly, so gracefully. And it was I would say it was a great start to the Indian effort as much as, for me to be there and be able to shoot it at the time it mattered. So, and also why I emphasize that I did not go for the other events is that those were the prelims, so the initial rounds of the qualifications, whereas this was a medal prospect, and hence in terms of time and energy as a photographer, I prioritized this event over everything else. I'm showing the images in chronological order so that it kind of narrates the games as they went. I hope that's okay. Like I said, Mirabai Chanu is full of like all good athletes, full of gratitude and grace. And even when she did not manage a lift in her final attempt, her exit was so well handled by her. It was with a smile on her face. She knew she still had silver, and that's good. And she carried on. So, and what is interesting is that what one also learned during the games, that as much as it seems to be a physical effort, this whole weightlifting, obviously it is physical, but far more is the mental equilibrium that an athlete needs to put in place when going for a high performance sport like this. Reason being that if you are not focused in the mind, your body will not be able to take over the right kind of effort. You may have the balance in your physical body, you may have the strength in your muscles, you may have practiced and the movements are becoming muscle memory, yes, but in that last critical moment, if you are focused, if your mind is in its right place, then you're getting your lift right. It's actually more of a mental game eventually than a physical game. So, which was very interesting for me to discover at that time, that how much the mind plays a bigger role than the whole aspect of physical strength or endurance or everything else. And Mirabai Chanu just proved it because she was so mentally there. I'll show you other athletes also the same example of how the mind actually is sort of taking over or becoming more important than the physical part. Like I said, amazingly graceful. It was COVID time, so yeah, the mask was a constant. It was sometimes tough, but I was very fascinated to see Mirabai's earring, which is also the Olympic rings. So this is the shooting now. India was expected to perform well and win a lot of medals. Manu Bhaker is only 19, so there was a lot of stress on her, and she was hoping to achieve higher results, but didn't quite materialize. And this is with her coach. Then after she didn't quite make it, the whole aspect of if you want to divide sports photography, then very loosely it can be action and the reaction, right? So the action is where you'll get the thousandth of a second, the moment that you want to capture, and you have the sweat flying and the person falling and the arrow just leaving the bow. You'll get that in your action picture. But when you look at the reaction, it is how, as a human, that sports person is reacting, and how the emotions are displayed after the event has been done through, meaning that you perform in the field of play, you do your discipline as best as you know, the sports, whatever you're participating in as an athlete, you do that the best you know, and then you react. And sometimes the reaction can be, like in this case, a sad one, an emotionally sad one. sometimes the opposition is strong. So hockey became the other event that initially we did pretty, I would say, loosely on. We were not quite getting it right, but eventually, thankfully, we recovered. So in this game, we didn't get the points we wanted. I captioned this "mind the gap," like they say in the metro train, and the ball went right through. The goalkeeper Shijesh, they're all putting their best effort, but it was a very, very fast moving game. And mind you, now hockey, it was, what is amazing to see especially during the Olympics, where all the athletes in whichever sport they're performing are at the pinnacle of their performance also. Athletes plan at what time they will peak in their performance. So you may be good all over, but you are not your best yet. Why? Because you're saving the best for the end. And in this case, the end is the Olympic Games itself. So the game itself, the game of hockey in this case, is so fast moving, and you're against opposition like Australia in this case, which is again an amazing team and a very fit one at that. And how the pace of the game, the way fortunes change so fast, and the movement of the players is also so intense in terms of speed, if nothing else. So it was really, as a sports photographer, it was a delight to be able to capture that whole dynamic action that was happening. Right? It's like an explosion upon explosion that was happening in front of you. So it was great to be there, basically. And there was not a second that you could take your eyes off, the field of play, because there's so much happening. This picture editorially meant that we were outnumbered or outperformed by the Australians on this day. I kept this picture because, like I said, in event like archery, there is not much that you can do in terms of action. But yeah, there is a potential action. I'll show you what I mean. Here, the arrow has just left Atanu's hands. He's just about released his fingers a wee bit, and the arrow is just about to leave the thread. So for me, this becomes a moment that, at least in terms of archery, is the action moment. But now that I've blown up, I notice that he's also wearing a ring that has the Olympic rings on it. So yeah, nice. Okay, another event that we were expected to do well in. Monica Batra was supposed to be, winning the table tennis, but somehow she didn't quite get it right. And in when you're shooting an athlete, you can see it which way the game is going to head, from the athlete's body language, their confidence levels, how they are performing, and how they're reacting to their wins and losses, in the sub wins and losses between the game, how they're reacting to their match. So you can almost predict, this is going to be the potential result. And Monica wasn't quite getting it right. I mean, one could see that she wasn't focused enough. Her coach wasn't there, which was to her negative in this case. The opposition, I think it was a Chinese player, she had the coach on the field of play, whereas for some reason the Indian coach was not allowed. So for an athlete, that's really, really important. Again, going back to what I had said earlier, it's because it is such a mental game now. Physical, everybody can perform, but it's the mental levels that finally define who the winner can be. And if you're mentally not up to it, it's very difficult to win, which I guess happened in this game also. I'm showing you these pictures deliberately. They are, these are what can be called the easy pictures in table tennis, when the athlete tosses the ball up and it is about to go down before they serve. That's an easy shot. That's an easy way of getting a picture. So, my basic principle of any event that I cover is get something first. Get a picture that you can go home with. Get a good picture that you can go home with, and after that, put your effort towards what else can be done. How else can we improve upon this image? So yeah, get your safe shot. That you're secure. You're not going back empty-handed. And then look at how we can make it better, how we can improve further, and carry on. So that's what I did, and what I found was that, and especially I didn't realize it, to be honest, at that moment, but when I did zoom in, I realized that she had the Indian flag as also India written on her fingernails. It's also thanks to modern day sensors that this kind of exquisite detail can be picked up by our camera sensors and lenses. So yeah, I mean, full points actually to technology more than my own uh, my own ability. This was her exit. Sadly, she could not quite do it, and so this, for me, editorially was a way of describing her exit also from the games. So this I've kept as an image that kind of describes the humanness to any sport. There is no ball. The ball has just about left the frame. Actually, I did have it in my full shot. I deliberately cropped it to show, because the ball was in a way at the corner of the frame. So even though I have the ball, it didn't really matter. But what is more important, I think, in this shot is the expression of the eyes. As a human, when we are looking at another human, our tendency is always to look at the eyes first and see the expressions first from the eyes, then from the lips, and then from the rest of the body language. So yeah, this picture did that for me in terms of capturing the the action that is happening more from the human eye perspective. This is again, I think I got her name wrong earlier, Manu Bhakar. So here, the editorial context took over. She was under a lot of mental pressure to perform. And on the right is Saurabh Chaudhary's pistol, who was also standing next to her. I chose to frame it like this in a way to show how much is going through in her mind at that time, and how she's, looking back at the coach, seeking some way of a solution, in some way of getting her focus better, some way of getting some more points towards in her favor. So yeah, it was, even for us, I mean, she's only 19, and there was a lot of stress that she's also enduring because of the expectations that the country had from her. This was used very nicely in Hindustan Times. Grateful for that to them. And I mean, they gave a 5-column display in the newspaper at least. So again, but this describes the things that were also being reported in the media about, the whole that she's not up to it. What is she doing? The whole questioning of her performance, and at a team level also, it was posed down. And of course, no athlete wants to perform badly, but yeah, she was going through a lot of stress, if I can put it like that, through a lot of mental stress. So these images, though they are capturing an athlete who has lost, but because of the Indian context, and that is what I was shooting most. I was only shooting the interest of the Indian athletes, and hence the Indian subscribers. In this case, our newspapers like PTI is subscribed to by newspapers, websites, television, broadcasters, as also social media handles. So my priority was shooting in the Indian context. So even though we lost, this picture became far more relevant than anything else that may happen that day with that sport. I did shoot Simone Biles, though. I'll be honest about this picture. I didn't know where she's going to be in terms of the discipline. Like, in a gymnastic situation, in this case, there were 4 disciplines. Pole vault was one of them. There's balancing beam, there is artistic floor, there is parallel beams. So I wasn't sure where Simone Biles is going to be. And for me, I wanted to shoot her because she's such an amazing athlete. But I just, it was like, it's almost like divine providence that was helping me all through the games, and definitely here also. I stood I said, okay, let me shoot pole vault first, because ultimately the athletes will go through a rotation. So every athlete will be on a different apparatus, and I will get them on the different apparatus later also. I said, okay, let me start. The US team is performing. I didn't even know where the US team is, to be honest, because there was no announcements happening. The board, that electronic board that shows the events and all, wasn't completely decipherable for me. I was struggling in terms of getting the information. But I was fortunate, or should I say lucky, or maybe somebody was blessing me better. And I stood in this location as a start, and Simone Biles was on that thing on that particular apparatus, and she did only one jump. She didn't do it well. You can see that she's about to land, but she's not about to land properly. Her hands are already splayed in different directions. And when she landed also, she knew it from the expression on her face. We know that she knows hasn't got it right. And sadly, she exited after this very attempt. And I didn't even know that has happened. I kept looking for her. Where is she? Why is she not coming again? Her number is 392, if I remember correctly. So I'm looking for 392 West. Where is she? Where is she? And I can't find her. The other players come and do their part. Only later, meaning much after the event, I realized that she has decided to pull out due to mental stress, as she described it. And she didn't want to bring the rating of her team down, so she chose to pull out. I have other pictures of her in action, of course, when she's up in the air, etc. But I've chosen these moments because they describe her dilemma at that time. Yeah, so think about, again, I'll repeat on in terms of camera technology. These kind of pictures, one kind of strives for, especially in my early days as a sports photographer. I did a lot of sports, even for Indian Express, where I worked in the 90s. And these pictures, they took a while, meaning getting the focus right, getting your lens to be performing perfectly, and getting the moment eventually. So, but I can safely say now that, this is on the Sony, I think, and I'm using a 400 2.8. The way the cameras are so well designed now, that it is very difficult to miss a shot, in terms of at least getting your focus right, getting your moment perfect, because you are shooting at a higher FPS, though I do not like to go and stuff. I like to be measured about the way I press my shutter, right? Because the more you shoot, the more you have to edit your pictures later. It makes the task longer, and hence you get late in sending your pictures across fast. So broadly, as much as I can understand, I try to shoot smart instead of shoot a lot, and use the camera's technology to advantage, not to kind of abuse it. This, of course, is PV Sindhu, and she was amongst my favorite subjects. More so, one is, of course, her athletic grace, which is always evident in every move she makes, but also for how, in a very subtle way, how expressive she was with her inner grace, if I can put it in a different way. I did read up later, and I didn't know at that time that she does do meditation and yoga. So there is a different inner PV Sindhu that one could sense even when she was doing a very high volatile movement or dynamic movement in her extremely action-packed matches. A good athlete, any sport that you may take, does not lose focus on whether it's the shuttle, whether it's the ball, or whatever else. The eyes remain focused, and that's what defines a good athlete from a not so good one. So it shows, in this case, it shows her confidence, it shows her focus, it shows she knows what she's doing. So one can see that she's fully there and in control. To me, she also, like the way her hair flies, it's almost like the dancing Shiva, Nataraj statue, or that whole energy that she displays when in her movement is amazing to watch. This is somebody I know who was was shooting other sports and didn't have to shoot badminton, but he came only to watch her because he had seen her images and was really enamored. And as an athlete, he wanted to shoot her, shoot the gracefulness that she displays on the court. Here is another moment in between moments. This is Deepika, of course. And Deepika didn't quite do very well, as much as was expected of her. And when she hit this shot, after she had hit this shot with her bow and arrow, the points that she got was like 7 out of 10. And for an Olympic performance, 7 is extremely low. So her smile is more out of embarrassment after she looked at Atanu and then looked at the board and said, "Oh my God, what have I done?" But it's always the the moments within that sometimes can become far more interesting than the main action itself. I mean, of course, I have a the arrow just leaving her finger and things like that. This is easy peasy in the sense that if you know how to time yourself properly, once you've understood the movement of the athlete, how much time do they averagely take to release the arrow, you will know, okay, now I should start uh, firing my continuous frame per seconds. Not before, not after. Like, so I had a very high success rate, and that's not thanks to me. It's thanks to amazing technology that is giving me such high frames per second that, irrespective, if I get my timing right, then I'm definitely getting a picture of the arrow leaving the hands of the athlete. But it's always these in between moments that I like to shoot and enjoy this. Like here, PV Sindhu is picking up a shuttle, which is and it's showing her fingers too painted with the Olympic rings in a way, and this whole the red vermilion thread, which is so typical of India. So that here is an Indian athlete who is at the Olympics without having to say much. Interestingly, there's also the India flag in the blurred background, but yeah. And this is during the warm-up time, so one is not compromising the main event. During the warm-up time also, one should always try to get different pictures which can tell the story differently. Mary Kom again sadly did not win her second match, but at her age, just to have reached the second round of the Olympics is also a big deal. So in a way, this is probably her last match at any Olympics now. I don't think she will want to do it at the age of, I think she'll be 42, but 41 by the time the next Olympics comes around. So yeah, this was in a way her farewell match, and what an amazing career she's had. So in a way, covering her was a humble ode to her greatness. This is after the match is over, her bowing to the crowd. But you can see, there's so much with each match. There's so much that is mentally also that is involved from the athlete's side. It's not just the sweat and perspiration that you're seeing. Again, I would say the in-between moments, the athletes have to go for a medical test soon after. So it was right there, and one could not but shoot it. So yeah, this also for me became interesting as a situation for sports. This is Lavlina, who you can see from her body language that she means business. This was her first the match, and which got her to the stage of the semi-finals. Yeah, so her whole confidence, body language, the focus of the eyes, it's all there. She knows with confidence that she's going to win this match. Oh, sorry. I thought I had another Lavlina picture, but let me just check. I thought I had more. Maybe later. Chalo, we'll get back to that. This picture, I'll just hang on this. Why is it not behaving? Yeah. This is Sindhu's match against, I always forget the name. My computer is giving me some trouble. There it goes. Akane Yamaguchi. So Akane Yamaguchi for PV Sindhu has always been a very strong competitor. So even though this was not the semi-finals, for her, PV Sindhu, to win against Yamaguchi was a very big deal. So her reaction at winning this match was far more intense than even when she won the bronze. This is another frame. I like the tonality here better, so I included this also. But I mean, think about this particular picture, and I sent it to my editor the next day, is that the day before, there's something called venue access, which was an online process of applying for the events that you want to cover. And the time to submit that was 4 p.m. every day. Now, of course, one expected PV Sindhu to be winning these matches. So I had applied for the venue access in time. And when I saw my mail the previous night, it was showing rejected. And my mind was blown. Why is my application rejected? I mean, I'm from India. PV Sindhu is an athlete that needs to be shot by somebody who represents Indian news interest. Why is my application rejected? And I was like completely gone. Like, what I'm going to do the next day if I do not get access to the venue. I can't shoot, obviously, and there may be history being created, and I don't have access. So I texted my editor also saying that this is so stressful that there is no certainty on so many things, and including this situation now where I've been denied access to the stadium. And later I realized, because your mind is not 100% working. Reason being, you're hardly getting any sleep during the Olympics. You barely sleep 5 hours on a good day, so you are mentally exhausted, especially at 2 a.m. that night. I realized that I was seeing there were two emails. One of them had approval. I'd actually applied twice. The second was rejection for that reason, not because they had disapproved my entry, but because the second application was not necessary and they had rejected that. So yes, I did get access, and thankfully, PV Sindhu did win. So all was good. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that, in those moments when you are working all by yourself, there is little recourse in anything else. You need to get your act right. You need to manage your permissions in terms of online everything. Your COVID tests need to be in place on a daily basis. There's something called OCHA. There's an app-based thing that you need to fill up every day. There is also the complete running around in terms of getting to the venues, which are like sometimes at least 1 hour away, which means 2 hours up and down, and then also going and shooting. So if you look at the calculation of energy, then 50% of my energy is actually going into the logistics part of arriving at getting the permissions, and then arriving at the permission itself, I think would take 50%. Just the online applications, the whole immigration process initially, the whole COVID protocols on initially as well as later, getting that information, understanding everything else, that would take 50% of energy. 40% of the energy would go into the whole physical logistics, getting from your hotel to the bus hub, from where you take the next bus out that goes to the venue. So each thing would take minimum half an hour, then 1 hour in the other direction after you get your bus, which may be delayed by 10, 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, maybe 1 hour sometimes. So, the whole logistics became time-wise a nightmare. By time, I also mean that as you go through the day, every day you would reach your hotel around 12:30, 1 o'clock at the night, and then you barely get sleep because next morning again you have to be up at 6:30. So it was a very compromised body cycle. So you will eventually make mistakes. And there was another photographer who asked me, "So is this your first Olympics?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, these things happen. You're mentally exhausted, so don't worry. You're good. This is how it always happens." But what I'm saying is that the viewer of my image has no clue of what is happening behind the scenes right now, and believe you me, it is extremely tough, especially when you're working alone. Amit Pangle was supposed to deliver, but this is, in a way, he was out in the first match itself. I mean, again, he came in like he's going to lose. He came in with that look on his face that he will not win. And of course, he lost. This athlete, I think, is special to me, Vandana Katiyar. She is from a family that is on the Dalit side of the caste fence. And during the Olympic Games, there was a lot of turmoil. One, you can read about it online in the news. Her family was targeted for her being a Dalit, and there was a lot of I'm sure there's a lot of it that also played on her mind when she came in. But this day she delivered a hat trick, and she's looking at not at anybody else, but she's looking at the heavens above and thanking and saying, you did it for me, kind of a thing. So what I'm saying is that knowing the background of what an athlete is going through, by knowing what is happening overall in the news, or having known the kind of athlete that person is, or kind of person that athlete is. It will make you predict almost these kind of moments. Here she's kissing her hockey stick. This is when she made the hat trick. Like I said, action and reaction. And Indians, we are overly emotional people, so we like the reaction more than the action. Another match, and this time PV Sindhu again. I love the way she's done her nail polish, which again shows the Olympic rings. This is a match that Satish lost, but his opposition, the Uzbek, was extremely good. He eventually went on to the final, win the finals also, I think. And but what was amazing was that Satish had a extremely bad injury. He had like 30 odd stitches when he came in for the match. Yet he did go through the match as a solid athlete should. So like full points to him for his courage or valor. He was getting badly beaten up, but he endured. He tried his best. He had injuries. You can see in his eye that there's blood coming out. And his opposition was extremely good. Like let's not deny, he was a taller athlete in that weight category wise, and he's also actually a very, very good boxer. This I've kept. I mean, there are of course her in action pictures also, but I've kept the reaction part of PV Sindhu as a defining moment. This is when she did win bronze. What I found amazing about her as an athlete is that every time she reacted, when it was a positive situation, like in this case, her winning the bronze medal finally after such a long wait, she always looked inwards. So if you see her entire body language and her eyes and expression, the entire energy is inwards. On the contrary, when she lost a point, she reacted always looking at her coach. So that you find these traits with the athletes as you observe them for a longer period of time. You realize that this is the situation. If PV Sindhu is at trailing by 12-13, and when she becomes 13 all, she's going to celebrate with a lot of gusto. And of course, she does each time. So I haven't kept those moments. They're on my Instagram if you want to see it there. The in-between moments, some of the sports shots are there, the action pictures are there. But here I'm trying to show her, the inner sort of the blissfulness of this celebration that she was going through. And only when she had completely internalized did she react in a relatively aggressive way in celebration as she headed towards her coach. Oops, this shouldn't have been there. Yeah. Again, when you're shooting her, what's amazing is her eyes, and they're always glowing and glistening. Again, our hockey girls are back. Like I said, I'm going in chronological order. So this is obviously a different match. I think this was against the Australians. My screen is getting partially hidden. Yeah, these are the Australian team. And winning against the Australian meant a big deal. So the reactions are valid. The celebration is completely valid. And similarly, on the opposite camp, you see the dejection. I think they lost pretty badly to us, and they didn't expect to lose. So it was amazing to see both the aspects of the emotions. It's the whole, the agony and the ecstasy kind of moment. So on one hand, you're seeing so much joy. On the other hand, you're seeing pain of loss. And that's the beauty of sports, one can say. Neha, again, the athlete who has jumped onto the scientific advisor or the physical advisor is onto him. She also comes from all of these girls actually have a story, and like Neha's case, as in Vandana's case, they come from fairly what can be described as impoverished backgrounds. So for them to be, being in the Olympics and then having that moment of victory and glory, means a lot more than, I would say, the other athletes. It's all relative, of course. I'm nobody to be judging, but once you know the backstory, then this moment becomes even more special. So again, the perks of staying on. There's an old saying amongst photojournalists that you should be the first to arrive and the last to leave. So since I was amongst I was filing from the stadium itself and not from the venue media center, one had the advantage of seeing the after moments. So like this was much after the press conference was done, the athletes had regrouped, and they decided to take a selfie. And this became, in a way, one of the moments of the Olympics that I'm sure these girls will cherish. Okay, here is an athlete whom everybody expected more from. And she was, to be fair to her, she did reach the last stage of the finals. She came sixth eventually, but Kamalpreet was, it's a rare situation where in athletics we are even managing to reach the finals. So that's how we are, sadly, as a country, that there's very in athletics, which is quite grueling. We haven't made it over so many years, but this time around, and of course there was Neeraj Chopra later, we have made quite a presence in our athletics performance, and her performance in the discus was also reasonably well. She did reach the sixth. For me to shoot her was difficult because in terms of access, only the international wired photographers, which is AP, Reuters, Getty, EPA, and AFP, they were allowed in what was called the pool access, which was closer or the other side of the net, whereas the average photographer like me was standing in the pit, which was far away. This is on a very long lens. I think I had a 1.4x on my 400, and what I could best shoot is just before her throw. So this is not the actual throw. This is the first stretch that you take, and then you turn around and swirl and throw the discus. But yet, since I had to shoot something, I got at least something out of that situation. This is our man of the day, of the month, or maybe of the year, Neeraj Chopra. This is during the qualifications round. Now, why I am very intrigued, or happy about the way this picture has been received is that this is not exactly an action moment. There is very little one can see in terms of anything grand happening, but yet this is a picture that I did not chance upon. I planned this picture. I wanted that particular kind of the whole mood of the Olympic Stadium to show in the background, that the grandeur of the Olympics to come through, and him being the soldier that he is with the Indian Army. I think his stance with the the javelin, gave that extra something to this visual, which, despite it being a very nuanced moment, struck a very strong chord amongst people in India. And this picture did go viral, if I remember correctly. Even I think the PM tweeted it, and many others did. They did use the picture. Sadly, no credit. So I have to keep telling people, this is my picture, but that's okay, as long as one has this image, and that the country has been able to see this great athlete. Again, in the second match, in the bronze event, Lolina didn't quite deliver. She's getting very badly handled by her Turkish counterpart. But the Turkish counterpart was very strong, so full points to her for delivering. But what was, again, like I said, you can make out when the athlete is not going to win, because their whole body language is different. The way their eyes are looking is different. You almost come in as a winner, or you come in as a loser, and you can make out. And with a bit of experience, you'll make out who's going to win this match. Our captain is, again, she also comes from a very humble background. Her parents were daily wage laborers. They struggled to make her achieve her dreams. So for her to lose was a big deal. I forget her match. I think she was, this is against the Argentines. So Argentina was an extremely strong team, but of course, Rani Rampal and all gave the best effort and but in this case they did not win. However, a 2-1 loss to the Argentinians, who were extremely strong as a team, was not such a bad loss also. However, there was a strong reaction by our team members. Not everybody kind of accepted the loss so easily. On the other hand, the Indian men's team did well in the bronze final, in the bronze medal match, and they did beat the Germans. And what I noted, if I may say so, in my analysis, was that in the last quarter, especially in the deciding quarter of the game, the Germans were losing the plot. One could see them getting aggressive. One could see them getting anxious. They were not focused. Whereas the Indians kept steadfast in what they were doing. They continued to play like they want to win, and they will win. So, and that attitude helped eventually, because we did uh, really outbeat a very strong German team. Of course, there was celebration. She just decided to get on top of the goalkeeper. He was like on top of the goal post, and that's his stuff. The goalkeeping post is his stuff, and he decided to be right on top. And here he's pointing to the dolly camera. Again, like complete joy. I met him at the airport on the return, and told him, I had this picture, and he says, "Yeah, great photograph," now, because he was so happy doing what he did. Like, he was called the wall and all that, as because he saved so many of the potential goals that were coming our way. So he was, of course, a very elated person. Same again, the after moments are always joyous, especially when you win. Here is a man who was not happy to win. I mean, he did get silver. In this match, he lost during the gold medal match. But Ravi was somehow just not happy with the situation. He wanted gold, it seemed, and because he did not get it, he was not comfortable with himself. And you could see it during the game that he was almost asking himself, "Am I not winning?" And later also, when he did lose, he didn't quite accept it well. And when he did get the silver, he's looking at it and saying, "I wish this was gold." But that is the irony of sports, that it can go any which way. I hope we are good on time, SP. It's 7:10 right now. Yeah, carry on. Okay. Again, it's the in-between moments that always are fun. Here is the hockey bronze medal match. But as the England team and the Indian team, not the England, the Great Britain team and the Indian team, before the match starts, they do this kind of a ceremony during the national anthems and after that. So it's an interesting hockey moment, I would say. Okay, now this picture, there are pictures that happen in front of your eyes, and there are pictures that you wait for in sports. So here is a picture that was a result of anticipation purely. The background I wish was slightly better, but it wasn't, sadly. But here is, when I'm so bad with name. When Gurjeet did take this penalty shot, she, she came in and something told me deep inside that she's going to score. She's going to get this penalty corner right. And I just waited for. I didn't even look at the goalpost area. My attention was only on her. Something intuitively told me that she's going to get the goal, and she did. And the minute it hit the board, she turned around and she put her fist up, punched her fist up in celebration. And because I, in a way, intuitively or whatever, anticipated it to happen, I had her reaction the way it was. So, sports is a lot more about not discovering the picture, but anticipating and hence planning for it. But then there are these moments that, for me, the heroic effort of our women's team was amazing, led by Rani Rampal. How much it's like almost like the Chak De moment where they're putting so much effort behind everything they do. Again, another shot that, another goal that Vandana had. This is again during the bronze medal match, which sadly we lost, but yeah. This is when we lost. So my attention again was on Vandana, having read the news, so to speak. So I wanted to see what is going on in her mind. Neha, who also reacted very strongly. What was nice to see is the players from the Great Britain coming up to all the Indian team players who were especially emotional. and kind of expressing the warm hand, and not consoling, that's the wrong word, but trying to be with them at that moment, making it, so to speak, easier for them. But it wasn't easy. You can see from the expressions and body language that we were affected. Our team was affected by the loss. That is a crop version of the same picture. This match, what was interesting here is this is Bajrang's match, which is before the bronze medal attempt. I could not cover the bronze medal match because it was coinciding with another event. I think it was badminton conflicting with the match. But here, I arrived late, I'll be honest. I got the timing wrong. The journey was long to reach the venue. And when I reached the stadium, and I'm still going past security and all that, I could hear the hooter that describes that the second round has started. So it means that I have maybe a minute, maybe 3 minutes max of the match left. So I'm actually running in with all my camera gear, which is pretty heavy normally. And as I reach the field of play, I open my trolley bag zipper. I take out my 400 2.8 with the Sony A1 that I had. So it's all good to go because that's how I like to pack. I like to keep my cameras good to go. As soon as you reach, you should be able to perform immediately. Like there should be no time wasting of finding the right lens, finding it to fit the right camera body. And I mean, there's no time basically. You have to be fully prepared. When that bag opens, it's good to go. And thankfully that was the case. And at the minute I picked up the camera, in the next 2 seconds, I had my settings on and I began to shoot. And I barely had like maybe 90 seconds max of this situation to shoot, this particular match, which Bajrang lost eventually. But I did have my pictures. And it's also thanks to, the cameras becoming so much friendlier in terms of weight also, that you could pick it up easily. Without a monopod, I could shoot and get reasonably sharp pictures. Despite the low light conditions there, I was shooting on 5000 ISO. My shutter speed was, I think, 1250. I think that's what I had. And so whatever the shutter speed and aperture is also not very deep, possibly 5.6 only. So in those constrained in terms of light, etc., it's amazing how technology now delivers. Man of the moment again, but I kept these pictures. These I did not file on that day, but they did. They got a very good reaction on my Instagram, which is why? Because everybody wants to see a winner. So he's looking the hero material that he is, and it was nice to see how people are reacting to him as a person who's giving them hope, possibly as a person who's won gold and is given so much hope to so many potential athletes, and also to the people who have lived through COVID times and have seen very tough days in the past. This is the winning moment, or rather the reaction to the winning moments. This particular throw was not his. I know it was his second throw, and he knew that he had it. So his reaction was of complete elation, and this is the moment after that. And he knew that he's given his best, and he knew that he's going to win. So it's the reaction of a complete winner who's exalted in his reaction. This is when he's coming in, kind of is always looking inwards, but then sometimes that pent up energy inside bursts through. This is before he goes in for his throw, yet there is so much inside that he has to let it go out. This is post him being announced as the gold medal winner. He's kissing the ground in gratitude. Something we Indians do a lot more than other traditions maybe. And this is when he's posing for the photographers. His hands were getting cut by the Czechoslovakians' flags, so I chose to show the eyes here more. Of course, I have the other frames also, but I like the way he's completely full of joy, and that joy is showing in his eyes. So somebody said from the audience, I think it was a journalist only, Bharat Mata Ki, and he's saying Jai. So that being a Fauji, his reactions were also of some kind of I would say pride for being an Indian and having won a gold medal for India. some of the other moments. I think this is my last frame. It's come by accident, but yeah, something interesting about sports is like in this moment, how would you know whether the shuttle is reaching the racket or leaving it? I know that her racket is moving at lightning speed, and if I have captured it right, the shuttle has just left the racket. It has just about turned around. Whereas the shuttle is now, the cork is in the direction of the hit, right? So it's not, the cork is not facing the racket, the cork is facing away from the racket, which means that she has hit the shot. So again, in sports, if these smaller things, when you're editing your pictures, these smaller things start mattering. I think that's it that I have right now to share. You're welcome to ask questions. I'll stop sharing my screen. And if there are questions, I would love to take them. Yeah, hi.
Yes, Ashutosh, you are there? Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. Great. I love questions. It makes it easier for me to answer. Photo tweeting. Okay. 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 Yeah. 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 Social media, the presence of social media. Okay. Well, first of the question, part of the question was, see, pandemic. First part was the uncertainty, whether the game itself is going to happen or not. Then the whole preparation, that the extra layers of protocols, like I've already complained about it, that it was so difficult to actually get there. But having said that, when you reach the Olympics situation, there is this. It's a very interesting situation. Why? Because you know that the best amongst the world in terms of photographers, you're in that elite presence. The very best from every organization is being represented at the Olympics. So whether you may be seeing so many people, sadly they have a mask on, so you can't see their faces, but you may be walking amongst so many greats of photography in that situation of the Olympics. People's pictures that you may have seen and like said, my God, I wish I could take a picture like that, and they may be walking right in front of you. So it was amazing to be in that collective energy of such amazing photographers from across the world, and they were from across the world, and I did interact with quite a few of them as much as my schedule allowed, or the corona or the COVID protocols allowed. So one did interact a lot, and it was really a totally different experience to be there. The pandemic did put a dampener to some extent. It did that for the athletes also, in terms of their preparations and their anxieties, whether the event is happening at all or not, and similarly for us also. But I think in the end it all worked out. That it's all's well that ends well kind of situation. So yeah, it was stressful and all that, but when you see the end result, especially, like, I'm glad India did so well in terms of the tally, which was, one can safely say, it's unprecedented in the number of medals and the level of performance that we displayed. I mean, I wish we had done better in some of like the expected medals also, but that's cool. We got medals where we did not expect, so it kind of balances it out. And the last question was about Neeraj Chopra, right? What was the last part of the? About shooting yeah, the gold moment. I think PM Modi also said the same thing about Neeraj, that he found a different energy in Neeraj and a different confidence in his smile, even when he was leaving for the Olympics. And I mean, completely agree with that analysis, because when you saw Neeraj on the field, when he was, I can say during the qualification, because he was the last one to throw the javelin during the qualifications, or maybe the second last one. And through that entire time that he was waiting for his turn, it was in the daytime, so 10:30, 11ish, so it was kind of hot also. Kept under his umbrella on his seat, but he was restless somewhere deep inside, but his attention was completely, one can say, inwards. In a very loosely way, if I have to describe it, that's what he was doing. And when he did throw, that's when he was outwards. That's when the athlete kind of, all that, all the energy that you've held up is like a potent volcano that finally bursts when it matters. In this case, in the throw itself. And the same happened during the final match also, the final round also, the gold medal performance also. That day, his competitor Weber didn't quite get his act right. He did not, so to speak, peak at that event. Neeraj did, and that was good for us. And I mean, Neeraj also knows that Weber has delivered far higher in terms of the distance, and on that day he did not quite do it. So he was, even recently, he was graceful enough to acknowledge that and wished him luck for future events. So it's also amazing to see that bonhomie that the athletes displayed, even when it comes in terms of the context of the Pakistani javelin thrower, which Indian media was being kind of, or rather social media was being, social thing was being talked in the negative sense. How Neeraj kind of put everything in perspective and said that the bonhomie between the athletes is paramount, and that's what they are the each other's strength also in so many ways. And now, as far as Neeraj's effort is concerned, in his first throw, he did not look at the audience. He did not say, clap for me. He didn't do any of that. He was completely focused, just like PV Sindhu was, I said earlier, was completely focused inwards. You could almost see him collecting all his energy to one strong ball of effort that he knew that he's going to burst it out when it matters. And it did. Like, his first attempt wasn't as good, but during his second attempt, he nailed it. He got the length that he wanted, and his reaction, of course, showed it. He knew that he had won. He even lifted his finger to say, number one, kind of a thing. Some of the pictures you can see on my Instagram. It didn't show everything here, and he just knew that this is it. Now his only thing was, yeah, I'm getting a medal, but am I getting the gold or not will depend on Weber. And sadly for Weber, he didn't deliver, and Neeraj did. So yeah, but in the end, like he said that also, I think yesterday or day before, he said that I wish I could have gone and hugged him to say that I wish you had one, kind of a thing. And that also shows the greatness of that person, as a Neeraj, as a person, how amazing he is, and how much he is sensitive to the other athletes or the other people around. I mean, ever since he's come back, all his engagements, he's been unwell and everything, but he's been so courteous and attended all his commitments. He's taken care of every event he's gone for. So that also speaks volumes of the kind of people that we are shooting. It's not just a Neeraj Chopra who's a javelin thrower. It's an amazing human being there that one is also documenting through the lens. And the good thing is that what one is seeing, I mean, it's a gold medal winning performance, yes, but what one is seeing is that athletes' lifetime effort reaching that last few seconds where they are supposed to do their best, and you're witness to that. So it's a huge amount of, you can see that buildup of the energy and how it is finally displayed when you know you have a winner and you react strongly to that attempt. So it was amazing to shoot. Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is about the pistol shooting event. was Manu walking deliberately across Saurabh, the one which shows the pointing pistol?
No. She was not walking. No. That is the perspective. Actually, what happens in shooting is that you can only shoot from behind the players. They all are running in a long line. Sadly, that day there was a the scoreboard obstructing them. If that was not enough, there was an Australian shooter who was probably 6.5 feet and very big built, and Manu was right behind him. So she was like one small petite person behind a very huge wall, I would say, as far as the photographer is concerned. She was hidden behind a wall, literally. So it was very difficult for me to manage an angle in which I could see her face and, if possible, Saurabh Chaudhary's face also together. So, no, she was not walking across. It's just the question of the perspective. This is the long lens. So the long lens has an illusion of compressing the perspective. So things that are far away seem closer. Maybe that's the illusion.
Yeah. Okay. So, how many times do you shoot on a burst mode?
As little as I can. So, the thing with the settings of the camera is sometimes I actually bring it down. The camera had a potential of, I think, 30 frames per second. The Sony A1 had a 30 frames per second on the electronic shutter. I actually often use the mechanical shutter sometimes, because sometimes you want to know that you want that feedback that the mechanical shutter sound gives you, that, and even it's a pseudo flutter that the screen shows, which means that my frame is registering. So because you have trained on a moving mirror DSLR, and the mirrorless becomes a different creature sometimes. For the first time, I actually picked up a mirrorless. So I was actually surprised at myself that it worked out so well in terms of the technical part, at least. And the thing about too many frames is that, okay, you may have a lot of pictures, and maybe later then you can sit down and decide what you want. But that means that, you're always on deadline. And if you have so much gigabytes to process, to sort of go through, you're only going to take so much longer to reach the shot you really want. So if you are, like I said, be a smarter photographer, it is best to be decisive even at that time. You may take the advantage that the burst is allowing you, but don't abuse that advantage. Use it to just about the amount required, right? So, like, we do that burst when it matters, but don't do it just because you can. So there are moments when this deserves a burst. That time my shutter is going to squeeze maybe 3 seconds longer than required, maybe averagely 2 seconds longer or 1 second longer than required, and no more. What's the point? You're only going to strain yourself later. You'll have so much more to store. You'll have so much more to sift through. So why go for that extra when you can take pride in being a more accurate photographer? Right. If you trust your eyes, if you trust your skills, then you should be able to know that, okay, I've taken advantage of the frames per second, but let me not get carried away.
Right. So what difference do you find in the sports photography of Olympics versus domestic sports event?
A couple of things. One is that, in sports, it's very important to have a clean background. The advantage with the Olympics this time, there was no audience. So there was very little in terms of backgrounds. You averagely got either the chairs, which are symmetrical, or you have the blue or the red colors that were used for the backdrops. So finding that situation where you do not have too much conflict in terms of background noise is very important for sports images. Sometimes you can't, even if you try your best, it may not happen. I mean, some moments happen in a messy part of the background frame, but as much as you can, you try to refine your frame to keep the distractions in the background, especially to the minimum, or even foreground for that matter. So that is an important part of sports photography, to keep your frame as clean as possible. And in the Olympics, that was one small advantage one had. The lighting was very well done. It was not just illumination, it was actually, in many places, the lighting was giving the right modulation to the players, and also then, it's about having the light evenly spread. Like if it's a hockey venue, then there are no hot spots of light, so you're not changing your settings so often. And also there is the evenness of the light even at the corners of the field. sometimes that gets compromised. It's in regional sports also. To be fair, like I mean, regional sports, a lot of it would be cricket right now. A lot of it would also be the other events that one has shot here, including the Commonwealth Games that happened some time back. But in the interim, there is not much in terms of sports events or mega events that have happened in India besides cricket. So yeah, cricket is there, but cricket has a lot of what should I say? There's a lot of attention from us Indians, and hence it gets pretty pampered. And hence there is, because they are richer in resources, there is a lot more that is pumped in terms of getting everything right. Having said that, though, I mean, it's. I wish there was more of the sporting events in India. We do have the national games and other events, but I'll be honest, I haven't covered that so much. I've covered the Asian Games and Commonwealth Games, yes. I've covered the Afro-Asian Games also when that happened in Hyderabad, but not so much of the national games events. But having said that, I think now as a nation, our attention towards sports is going to be far more, and even as news gatherers, for us to be able to shoot far more of the Indian events is going to be higher. So yeah, I think it's going to be exciting times ahead in terms of how much attention we pay to every aspect of the event, whether it comes to the right everything, the background, foreground, lighting, stadium, everything to be the way it is supposed to be at an international event.
So, in the same this context, I have a question to you, sir. Like, as a journalist or as an Indian, how do you see the funding going towards Olympics when compared to other sports, mostly cricket? Because for cricket there is a lot of funds, but Olympics or other players don't get so much attention.
Yeah, so that has been true to quite an extent, but one has seen in the recent past. I think our government has really pumped in a lot of resources, whether it is getting the right coaches or sending athletes for long durations to different countries for training, especially because of Corona. So like a lot of our teams was like the shooting team was in Croatia for the longest time. Need to be sending players there. Many of the athletes, like including Neeraj and all, I think trained in Germany or somewhere in Europe. So likewise, there were so many athletes who did not train in India but trained elsewhere, and the government was supporting them. And also finding, like the hockey women's team had a physio, a scientific advisor, a coach. Coach is normal, but the other the ancillary but critical staff that is needed for the team to perform. And I'll just come to you. Why it is important is that, in my point of view, especially when you see at the event of the Olympic scale, is that all the athletes who are reaching the Olympic stadium or reaching the Olympic per se, they're reaching the Olympics, they're all extremely good athletes by themselves. They're all physically strong, fit, endurance is there. They've done their training for a long period of time. That's why they've reached the Olympics, right? So now what is left is the extra part, the mental part, and that's where the support staff, whether it's a coach, whether it's the physio, whether it's a scientific advisor or whoever else they are, they start playing an even bigger role for the athletes to now outperform beyond their own physical capability and win the mind game, so to speak. Because in the end, it becomes only the mind game. Yes, coming back to you. You were saying something?
Yeah. Sir, just being cricketer myself, background, I just want to clarify. Government does not spend 1 paise on cricket in India. It is all generated by BCCI. Okay, so no misconception government encouraging. On the contrary, it is paying highest tax among the sports bodies cricket. Okay, so cricket is different. Okay.
They're still doing good, and I think there's a lesson for other sports also to learn from.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. They should point out cricket because the government does not spend single pie on cricket. Everywhere.
Yeah, they're managing pretty well.
Yeah, I think similar federations should start in India, like BCCI. I
They
think
should, yeah, they should follow it. They
yeah,
should follow BCCI. So, okay.
Yeah. So basically, it's about making that event lucrative. Like, they have done it with kabaddi to some extent. They've done it with football and hockey to some extent. So yeah, I mean, people are trying to make it a event so that you can garner some, resources or funds out of it. You make it television friendly so that your audience and hence advertising is bigger. So it's ultimately it is about the money also. We may complain about everything else, but in the end, yeah, money does matter when it comes to performance. I mean, a little tangential but relevant point here is that if you look at the medals tally right now, also at the Olympics, who are the top 10 countries? All of them are developed economies. Only when a country is doing well financially and hence they have the resources, will even their sports do well. That's when the culture will do well. That's a historically proven fact. So we need to, like, very few will have athletes who have performed despite the weak condition in their country. So those will be the aberrations, one can say. But the consistency of performance across a broad spectrum of sports events is coming more from countries which are developed, whether it's the US, the European countries, or anywhere else. You deliver when you are when you have the resources to spend on your athletes also.
right, right. So one question is, was PTI covering the event or the Olympics as a team, distributed work, or just yourself?
So I'm a Sikh by religion, and there is our Guru Gobind Singh was a master strategist when it comes to fooling the Mughals in those days. So he used to say that Sava lakh, like 1.25 lakhs troops should move to that location, because he knew there were spies in the circle who would tell the Mughals about the movement of the troops. So he would just, when he said Sava lakh, it meant one person.
Okay.
So he qualified that later to say each of you Sikhs as a warrior is equivalent to 1.25 lakh people of the opposition. So yeah, I'm a Sikh myself. I was alone, but I was trying to be a Sawa lakh or a 1.25 lakh person. I didn't have much support in terms of anything else. We have a reporting team, but they were not in Tokyo. They were in Delhi at that time. Due to various reasons, they did not come. But yes, there are people, and you always find people who want to help you as much as you also help others when you're in a situation like this. So there were so many Indian journalist friends whom I made when I reached there, and some of them were veterans of the game, and they would say, Gurinder, stop everything now. First, do this. Apply on this app. Do this part first. Fill up this paperwork first. Tomorrow morning, reach here first. So the right advice comes to you, and I can say that if one, your intention is right, and two, if you also give back in return in any which way that you can, whether it's plain respect, whether it's sharing information, whatever it is that you can share back, then that circle completes. So yeah, one did gather the required information as and when it was supposed to come to you, it came, and thankfully I managed to be in the right place at the right time on almost all the occasions that India was performing well or not performing well also. So I had the pictures that mattered, one can say.
Yes, and I think a lot of comments also say the same thing, that in between shots were storytellers kind of pictures, and
Yeah.
the attention to detail also, like the nail polish and the earrings and the rings, all
Yeah.
those being shown is, we as audience we could feel, or we could come closer to the sports that was happening in a faraway country. Yeah.
I'm
So
glad.
thank you for that, sir. Um, uh, a technical question is, at 5000 ISO and low lighting conditions with f5.6, how do you handle noise and focus while composing the image?
I kept repeating this point about the aspect of modern day sensors. I think we are at that point of technology. I think it's a watershed moment in terms of technology where the sensors are so well performing. Despite 5000 ISO, I'm barely getting noise. I'll share my screen again, maybe to highlight that aspect. Let me take a picture which can point that out. Let's just take maybe Neeraj Chopra himself. And if this is also, if I remember correctly, at ISO 5000, I'm not being able to see that part. Frame. This is shutter speed 1600, ISO 5000, aperture 6.3. This was a lens. The lens was a 600 mm, which I had borrowed from Sony. So again, this is on the Sony A1, which is pretty brilliant when it comes to low light and autofocus. Now again, it is no kudos to me. It is kudos to the technologies that camera manufacturers are being able to provide now. Here, if I am going to, I think I've got the, see, look at the amount of crazy detail I can still see, even at that magnification. It's scary, the kind of resolution power that, and the whole range of tonality that sensors are able to capture, despite it being on 5000 ISO, is really rocking. So the thing is that you cannot go to a slower shutter speed. I'm shooting on a 600 mm lens. Even a slight movement is a lot of movement on that kind of perspective. So having a high shutter speed is critical. At the same time, you can't go full open. So I was on a 5.6 lens. I made it 6.3, but that's only a bit in terms of depth of field. But the way sensors are now processing noise is brilliant. The whatever is being used for cleaning out the noise, like these are all on 5000 ISO. If I zoom in, I think it will come. Can you see it now? It shows that it is sharing. Yeah. I've taken a detail of it just to highlight the kind of the noise, especially evident in the shadow areas. I'm going to blow up this part. It is capturing both the highlights and the shadows together. And can you see it now? Okay, I'll take some other image maybe. Okay, I think this also of Mirabai Chanu was at aperture. No, sorry, the detail is not visible here. But yeah, this was also close to 5000 ISO only. Again, the way sensors are designed nowadays, I'll just make it full frame. Is it showing? So look at the noise levels. It's hardly there, and yet the areas that need to be sharp are sharp. And this picture did get used a lot and pretty large sometimes in newspapers. So yeah, it's especially if you look at the highlight detail. I'm going to zoom in there. I hope it comes through. It takes a bit of a lag. Leave it here for a while. Has it come? I don't think it does when I zoom in. Okay, I'm going to exclude that. You can take my word for it that each time, I'm just saying that the technology is now so good that most of the noise, even at 5000 ISO, has disappeared. The highest ISO these cameras now go to is like a lakh and plus. So there is hardly an issue there. The other aspect is about autofocus. A lot of cameras now are giving human eye tracking. So I can even give it a face and tell them that, okay, track this face. I can register a face and the focusing system will not lose sight literally of that person's eye. I'll give you one more situation where I was shooting Javelin of Shivpal. When Shivpal was doing his qualification run, I thought I'd shoot it from a distance because I couldn't get closer access because I'm not cool photographer. I'm outside a little far away. I'm shooting on a 400 with a 1.4x. So that's a 560 mm lens. And when I'm shooting, I see him initially when he starts his run up. But in between, there is a huge camera dolly setup. Then there is a standing camera setup. There are volunteers. There are referees. on chairs, etc. So there's a whole line of possible obstacles to the athletes running across. So, but the amazing thing, like again with technology, again I'm shooting on the Sony A1 here. I start focusing when he starts running, and I'm tracking him as he moves. And at no point, despite all the in between distractions that are happening, at no point do I lose the focus on the athlete. It's not kudos to me. I am repeating. It's just that the technology now is making it so good that if there is a human eye present in that frame, you can be assured that it will be sharp. It will not lose sight, whether whatever else may come in front, whether it's a boxer, whether it's a hockey player or whatever. The way technology is now so advanced that it's very difficult to get a blurred picture. You have to be really bad to get a blurred picture. Yeah. So there is a saying in Hindi, I hope others understand, is that says that Buddhu bachche ka basta bhari. Somebody a student in a school who doesn't know what's going to happen in the class will take every book possible, not knowing what is to be discussed that day. He will carry every which book possible, just in anticipation. Oh my God, I hope I don't leave behind something. So that is not the best way to do it. So we have to be, again, like I said, smart. Eventually, I realized that I was over carrying some gear, but because I was doing multidiscipline, on a certain day you needed a zoom, on a certain day you needed only a block lens when it came to the extreme tellies. So averagely, and because I could carry it in a trolley bag, I was carrying a 400 2.8 and a Nikon 180 400. So yes, I was carrying a D6 with the 180 400 because that zoom was very convenient in the range it gave me. And to be honest, I didn't have time to change my gear. So whatever I had taken on day one is what I stuck to, because there was no window of opportunity for me to go change or review or figure out what else is available. I just didn't have time. So, but having said that, I think on most occasions, like for the hockey, I just use the Nikon with the 180 400 because it helped me with that range to give me the flexibility. Sometimes when I was sure that I need a distant shot, like suppose it's a penalty shot that is happening on the other side of the field, I would pull out my 400 and on the Sony A1, I had to actually, strangely, I had two systems working parallelly. I had the Sony mirrorless and I had the D6 DSLR both working together. Thankfully, no conflict in my mind, at least. I managed to get both of them working for me. And I would use the block lens 400 when I know that it is a 400 shot and nothing lesser, but the players are not likely to move towards me. So then I would prefer the quality of a block lens gives you, right? So I was mixing equipment like that. So yeah, in my bag, I have a 400 2.8. I have a 180 to 400 f4 lens, which is also bulky. I have a D6 body. I have a Sony A1 into 2. One of them I chose not to carry the vertical grip with, the battery grip that they give. Why? Because I want to cut down the weight as much as possible. I also carried a 500 5.6 initially of the Nikon, but eventually I didn't use it because I realized that I don't need that. In most situations, the 400 is what I need. Sometimes in the sports picture, like suppose it's wrestling happening. Now the wrestling picture can be the person's athlete's eyes and the expression hence, or it can be the whole frame as the player is thrown up in the air. So you need both those pictures with the same lens. You can't change lenses in between, right? It's happening in fractions of seconds. So hence, the safe perspective is possibly in most scenarios is that of the 400 But if you are confident of what you're doing, then maybe you can pack like Canon has a 400 to 800 also. Maybe you can pack that along. I mean, I saw some sports photographers using that there. So maybe it's a huge lens to carry, but it's possibly worth it. The 600 I used it for Neeraj Chopra pictures, is useful, but then sometimes, you've got that first shot and then the player moves a little and then it becomes too tight. So it's a bit of a touch and go scenario. You have to be very sure that you need a longer lens and that you are sure that 600 is what I need and not 400. So make your choices wisely when you prepare. Worst case scenario, you can put on a teleconverter. I personally don't like teleconverters. I mean, even though companies claim that they do a great job in terms of being better now, in terms of sharpness and all, but I always find it to be a compromise. So, I mean, a lens that is designed for the purpose, whether it's a zoom or whether it's a block lens, always works better. But again, so my average kit was a 2470, 70-200, a 180 400, and a 400 block. There was a teleconverter, but I barely used it. Yeah. The other part is the laptop. So you pack that also. Of course, you pack a charger. In the initial days, I did not have, and that is so strange and surprising, I did not have the adapter that goes into the Japanese plugs. Everywhere you went, there was only that Japanese style of it's like a slit, two slits in the socket, and I didn't have the adapter for it, and I didn't know what to do. So I relied upon my frugal shooting and frugal editing to kind of make do with the battery I had. That was on day one. On day two, I realized that my battery pack, which is a 18 watt 20,000 mAh charger, the power bank that I was carrying for my phone, could also charge not just my cameras, but could also charge my laptop. And that was an interesting discovery. I found it very useful, and it was a big relief because I was not finding that adapter. Remember, so when I would reach 5% of my laptop battery, I would connect that, and as I worked for like the next half an hour or something, the battery would move to like 7% and not more. But I would be able to send my pictures across, and that time that is what is important. So yeah, carry a power bank with you, and in this case, like my phone, my camera charging, and my laptop charging were all on the C-type port. So common cable, one cable coming out of the power bank would actually charge any device. That was a huge bonus, again, thanks to technology, that one was not, clustered in that situation. And in fact, I did not miss the the adapter after that. I took my time finding it later when I did find it. So I was good without it.
Yeah. Okay. So the last question is how did you prepare yourself in terms of knowing the background of the players, like about the hockey players or the last, possibly the last match of Mericom and all the other players, right? All the other athletes. So how did you prepare?
There are two things here. One is being in the news business, one does follow to some extent. You do read the newspapers, you do read the websites. So you know, in general, what is the news and what is it that has happened to some extent. But I'll be honest, I was not on top of things. I'm being blunt and straightforward about this. I actually thought that I'll have time once I finish my applications to read up about all the possible athletes. But there are so many, and how much can you read up really? But I thought I'll prepare myself better. Worst case scenario, I'll prepare on the flight. Worst case scenario, or even worst case scenario, I'll prepare when I have the quarantine phase before the game start. But no matter how much I prepared, it wasn't enough, because also, there are so many athletes. Two, there are so many nuances that are changing on a daily basis. So if you win, there's a certain aspect to the story. If you lose, there's a certain different aspect to the story. So you have to basically keep your ears open. There is discussions happening around you. You have to listen to that. There is discussion happening on social media. You have to listen to that. You should be following the news as it is being reported. Like sometimes I did not have the information during the event, but later. But you have to keep a watchful ear for it. But in terms of preparation, I'm glad you brought up that point. I think my physical preparation for the games, not just the paperwork, was even more extreme than my research or my notes that I prepared on the players. And I mean, I can add it as a parting note that to be a sports photographer, it is extremely important to be physically there. One, because you're not sleeping enough. Two, because you are in odd situations, in this case, a hot and humid place for a very long period of time, and you have to possibly stand or sit in one place for a very long period of time, and yet you need to deliver, because the world is waiting for your pictures. I mean, I'm not saying that in an exalted way, but in a way that I'm, from the aspect of me representing PTI, there are so many subscribers whom I'm responsible for. So I need to deliver. And if I'm not physically up to it and I fail because of physical reasons, then there can't be a worse scenario. So what I mean to say is that before I went, for a whole month. I had been doing yoga and meditation earlier, but I was getting, because of my job being a lot on the desk as a manager and as a photo editor, my lower back was in excruciating pain 1 month before the games, and I was asking myself, how am I going to do this? But I did prepare. I started taking long walks. I took a backpack which had up to 25 kilos of plates in it. So I took that weight on my back and I walked. So that strengthened my muscles here and on my lower back area. And eventually, when I did reach Tokyo, I was good to go. I didn't have any, thankfully. I did have some other issues, but not lower back or neck issues. I was having just 1 month prior to the games. So in terms of preparation, you're preparing for a physical fitness. You're preparing for the time when you will not get your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So what is it that you carry with you, or what do you? Hence, what is in your like in those last minute when you have to pack your bag? You have maybe dry fruits. I carried some protein shake powder, which I would quickly make a solution and bring at least that much. I was carrying nuts and other dry fruits, which are strong on energy and things like that. So and or water, of course, water was a big issue. Every time you find water as a sports photographer, drink it, carry 3 extra bottles, 4 extra bottles, dump it in your sack and carry it with you, because you will not get the time to replenish. So each time you find water, number one, hydration is very important. Pack your bag with the bottles you can. Every time you get food, eat it. Like, I actually literally was chomping my food as I was working on my laptop. But there was no choice. You should, in a way, you should be at peace with that situation. It's not going to be a sit-down dinner with a chef serving you. No, it's going to be a sandwich, possibly a peanut butter sandwich in one hand and the fingers working on the laptop, keys on the other hand. And that is how it is. So accept it and enjoy it.
Right. I think, yeah, those are the end of the questions. I'll hand over it to Sharma sir. Thank you so much, sir, for an amazing presentation and amazing insight from the Olympics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to you.
Sharma sir.
Sir, audio is off.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Astush, for conducting every Q&A session. And Gurinderji, I have an interesting question still left.
Yeah, sure.
Why do sports photographers ask winners to bite the medals during photo shoots?
I did ask. I never post my pictures, so I didn't ask. But yeah, there is. I think it's a tradition that has come from: is this real gold or not? So when you bite into that metal, you can make out whether it's real or not. And I think it's just a tradition thing that has, for no great logic, it has carried on. So yeah, it's it's a way of showing the medal closer to the face, if I can put it in a visual sense. They do that. But like in Mirabai Chanu's picture, she's biting through the mask. So she can't even bite it in these COVID times. So yeah.
Lovely. Lovely. Thank you. And one last question. Considering the Paralympians are doing much better with 19 medals.
Yeah.
Gurinderji, do you feel you should have been at Tokyo today, given your perchance for reaction pictures?
I wish I was there.
Mentioned.
We do. And I've told myself that whether it is from my own pocket or if I'm working for a company that allows me to go, then I want to cover every Olympics and Paralympics in the future as much as possible.
Right.
So
Thank you very much. And that was the question posed to you by one Mr. Shiv Kumar. He was with you with the ONGC, Pasarlapudi, that tragic incident, no? That fire blow up.
Pasarlapudi, Amlapuram area.
Amlapuram, exactly. He was your friend. He was telling us. So, lovely session, Gurinderji. And I have noted a few points. I will read them out to you, lest I may forget some points. So it was quite a delightful, fascinating, exciting and electrifying experience which rarely comes in one's life. And you have done it. We are proud of it. The sports photography, as everyone of us know, is very difficult and needs lot of alertness, presence of mind, absolute mastery of the technical aspects, endurance, and the devotion for the cause. It's totally a mind game for the action photography, as he is not supposed to miss the right moment.
Right.
A moment gone unclicked is a disaster. As you have rightly said, the action and reaction are to be shown so vividly, and we see in all of the images that you have exhibited today with us. And it's a very delightful experience indeed. And it is an exhilarating experience also indeed. We feel as if we were in Tokyo live through your lens, and we are very fortunate.